Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio, welcoming you to another edition of People of Distinction. The talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org, for more info, or you can email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Myles B. Hibbett. We'll be discussing, actually, a series of books, all revolving around the main character of Zephyr, okay? So we're going to start off with Zephyr Spheres and the Sword of Wonders, and we'll continue into the rest of the titles as we go. And just so you guys are aware, that is all available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, but if you really want to get everything that Myles has to offer and really get the full experience, do yourself a favor, go directly to his personal website, zephyrspheres.com. There you'll be able to find not only this title, the other titles once they're published and put out as well, but you'll also be able to find more information on Myles and be able to purchase them directly through the site also. And Myles was brought to People of Distinction today by some of the best movers in the business, Westwood Books Publishing. If you have a book that you'd like moved, move it through Westwood Books. You can find them at westwoodbookspublishing.com. And guys, I am so excited to have Myles here on the line because, listen, the books we're going to be discussing that Myles has orchestrated, it's an action-packed sci-fi adventure and revolving around a universal language that we love discussing here on People of Distinction, revolving around love. Love amongst these characters, love amongst, human, well, maybe they're not all human, but love around our human family that way, which is what we love to discuss here at People of Distinction. And listen, Myles is the expert on this genre. He's the expert on these titles. So without further ado, let's go ahead. Let's bring him here on the line with us, okay? Myles, first and foremost, thank you so much for being a guest with us on People of Distinction. How are you today?
Hi, I'm fine. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, listen, we are very much looking forward to these books. Now, before we jump into the series itself, let's hold off slightly. Let's build that temptation just a little bit more, okay? Tell our listening audience a little bit about yourself, please.
Yes. I'm 37 years old, and I was born and raised in Philadelphia. I've lived here all my life. My mother exposed me to fairy tales when I was a child, and that influenced me heavily. My favorite fairy tale is Beauty and the Beast, and also I'm an avid fan of children's fantasy. And my favorite books are the Darkest Rising series by Susan Cooper and the Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. I created Zephyr Spheres and started writing at the age of 17. I've always had a vivid imagination, and I decided that I would love to be a children's author. It's my mother. She was a librarian, and she read some of our work, and she felt strongly that I could be a successful writer. Mm-hmm. But also at a young age, I was stricken with mental illness and mental health illness, and that has kept me from writing regularly, but I've still dreamt of being an author. I was inspired to create Zephyr Spheres by a need for female heroines. I originally thought to make Zephyr a white or male character, but I felt it was more meaningful for Zephyr to be black female. And for all the characters in the series to be black. I thought that young black children and girls could identify characters with their own skin tones. And I also want to inspire people to know love, courage, friendship, and imagination, and especially love. Zephyr Spheres is a 5-book series that will be published fully eventually. Right now, the first book available is Zephyr Spheres and the Sword of Wonders, and the sequel that should be published eventually is first is Zephyr Spheres and Lost Spell. But after that, there is Zephyr Spheres and Astra's Necklace, Zephyr Spheres and Silver Unicorn, and finally Zephyr Spheres and the Crystal Labyrinth.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing, Myles. Now, listen, before we go into the book, let me just stop first and say, and really commend you on what an amazing background, right? And listen, we all have our share of adversity that we have to go through as we're pursuing our dreams. And I'm just going to commend you on not allowing your challenges and your adversity that you faced to hold you back. And I think that's largely due to A, the person that you are, but B, your mother and how she has been able to influence you in so many ways. And that is a beautiful, beautiful thing, man. So really congratulations on that. And being a huge Disney fan myself, Beauty and the Beast is fantastic, right? It's a great, great, great narrative. Love that story. And listen, everything that you've mentioned, the Chronicles of Narnia, fantastic as well. So yeah, definitely have been inspired by great work. Now, without further ado, let's jump right in, Myles. Zephyr Spheres and the Sword of Wonders. Tell us a little bit about the book.
Well, when Zephyr Spheres starts out, she's a lonely, black, and awkward 13-year-old girl, and she is living with a poor foster family called the Krumpples. But Mrs. Krumple is cruel to Zephyr, and she makes her do chores regularly. And Mr. Krumple is passive and often working as a security officer at a bank. And Zephyr has troubles at school. She's laughed at by her classmates, especially obnoxious and wealthy Trinda Temple. Which Zephyr even stands out. She was ridiculed for talking to animals and chanting mysterious words, and she feels out of place. But her life is bad, but it gets worse. She accidentally uses magic at school and loses control to turn Trinda Temple into a doll. But she doesn't know how she did it. And she manages to change her back, but when she does, everyone knows that she has powers, and her foster mother wants to send her to the government to be studied. She luckily, though, is transported to Danus by two dwarves who appear, which is a world with 13 kingdoms, and is the world of magic. And she's taken to the King of Crystotopia and to the Crystal Castle. And that's where she finds out that she's the long-lost princess of Crystotopia. Mm-hmm. And she's an amateur sorceress. She also finds out that her father, Linus, has been kidnapped by the evil alliance, the Dark Forces. And she learns that the Dark Forces are bent on taking over Crystotopia and all of Danus. Zephyr has several key adventures at first in Crystotopia. She tries to take princess lessons from her governess, Madame Viteria, and she takes magic lessons from the head sorcerer Crystotopia, who is named Siphron. The royal court wonders if she is fit to be the princess of Crystotopia, especially the chancellor, who's critical and mean of her. And the chancellor is in control of Crystotopia, while her father is the king and is missing. That Zephyr does find out that her father has been kidnapped by the Dark Forces, and she ends up meeting some key characters who help her out, trying to figure out what happened to her father. She does meet Kor, who is a fire wizard and a stable boy who works at the Crystal Castle. The Crystal Castle is Zephyr's home in Crystotopia. She meets the dwarf Helga. Helga is her nursemaid. And she also has a pet talking falcon, Scorn, that was given to her by Siphron. And those are the main friends she has when she gets to Crystotopia and the Sword of Zephyr Spheres and Sword of Wonders. Good. Eventually, she does discover what's happened to her father, and she ends up using the Sword of Wonders itself to save him and to save Crystotopia. And the Sword of Wonders itself is a mystical device that's supposed to be a defense to protect Crystotopia. But there's more mystery around it than that. It's misunderstood, and it's vital and key to the rest of the series, and it plays a key part in it, the Sword of Wonders.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing, Myles. Let's keep it moving. Let's go right into the next one. Zephyr Spheres and the Lost Spell. Tell us a little bit about that one, please.
Well, in Zephyr Spheres and the Lost Spell, it starts off that it's Christmas vacation, and Zephyr ends up having to do a group project with Trinda Temple, as well as other humans from her school, Brandon Longfellow and Elizabeth Thompson. But during a snowstorm, Zephyr is contacted by Helga, and that Helga wants Zephyr to return to Crystotopia. Yeah. I'm sorry, I mentioned too that at the end of Zephyr Spheres and the Sword of Wonders, Zephyr does go back to Earth for her protection. Her father sends her back. Anyway, back to the sequel. There's a deadly magic sapping plague that's taken hold of Crystotopia, and Zephyr's father is fallen ill, and Cyphron wants Zephyr to see him before he dies. And Zephyr gets upset. There's supposed to be groups of parties trying to find the cure to the plague, and she's upset that her father wants her to return to Earth for safety again, and also that she feels not enough is being done to help with the plague. Mm-hmm. She finds out from a key healer named Little Herb that healers are a group of people who can mix potions and heal people, and she discovers a story about a lost spell that can cure any illness, sickness, or disease. And because she feels things aren't being done enough herself, she goes off on a journey with her friends to travel through Danus and to get the lost spell. And she does succeed, but she does have to go through a lot to do that with her friends. She specifically she has to go through the waterway of strife, the catacombs of confusion. She meets an evil member of the Dark Forces who's Prince Wart, and even a creature called the Cragmeister. And she does save Crystotopia again and gets the spell, and that is when her father sends her back to Danus for protection again.
Moving right along, the next book in this series is Zephyr Spheres and Astra's Necklace. Tell us a little bit about that one, please.
Yes, and Zephyr Spheres and Astra's Necklace, it's finally safe enough for Zephyr to return to Danus and Crystotopia. There are negotiations for peace between the allied kingdoms and the Dark Forces. And Zephyr's father, though, wants her to have an arranged marriage to help with the peace. She feels pressure from her father to do that, and she ends up being courted by two princes. Prince Taran of Sandus, who's appealing, and also he is evil almost, but wants to have peace, and it's Prince Wart. However, Kor, who is her friend, Zephyr's friend in the first two books, he apparently declares that he has a love for Zephyr, but he's not an eligible suitor because he's not a prince, and Zephyr is nervous about his feelings. But and also Zephyr is given a necklace. I don't want to reveal who gives her the necklace, but it's a necklace that she finds out is cursed, and that she can't take it off, and it interferes with her powers. Yeah, and during a visit to Prince Taran's kingdom, Sandus, Zephyr and her party are ambushed by Lodo, the tyrant of the kingdom Glacialis. And Zephyr and her friends end up in the kingdom. And that's when Zephyr figures out that the necklace she's wearing is cursed, and that it has a connection to Glacialis, as well as to Queen Astra Glacialis, who has disappeared, and people don't know what's happened to her. Zephyr ends up with her friends in Glacialis, that she's stuck there. They have to travel to get to Lodo, the tyrant, who has taken Cyphron prisoner. And Zephyr wants to confront him. And ultimately, Zephyr finds out that Queen Astra disappeared to protect power from the royal family of Ember, known as the Great Flame, and that Kor is the heir to Ember, and is the lost heir to Ember itself. Yeah, and Queen Astra is able to break the curse on the necklace and the curse on Glacialis, and the necklace belongs to her, and Zephyr gives it back. And once Zephyr learns that Kor is a prince, she declares that she is in love with him, and he has the Great Flame, but Scorpius appears and takes Kor, and wants his new power, and he takes him, and the Sword of Wonders has disappeared mysteriously, and Zephyr, Liz, and Brandon and Trinda cannot go back to Earth.
All right. Next one in the series, Zephyr Spheres and the Silver Unicorn.
Now that the Sword of Wonders is missing, Crystotopia is left defenseless, and the Dark Forces go to war with the allied kingdoms, and especially one take over Crystotopia. Kor also has been brainwashed by the leader of the Dark Forces, whose name is Scorpius, and he is using his Great Flame and his new power to help the Dark Forces. Zephyr, though, sets out on an adventure to find the Sword of Wonders. That is the key protection for Crystotopia. Her father, though, is preoccupied with war, so she sets out with a party to get the sword herself. And also, only the royal family can carry her or get the sword. Zephyr comes across the Silver Unicorn, which is the guardian of the sword that can lead her to it. But the unicorn leads Zephyr into danger continuously and has trials for her. Eventually, Zephyr gets to the Kingdom Breath, and she does locate the sword, its location. But she finds out that a member of her party is Scorpius himself. And Scorpius claims the Sword of Wonders before Zephyr can. That's when Zephyr and her friends flee, because all of Danus is at mercy now that Scorpius has the Sword of Wonders.
All right, and lastly, Zephyr Spheres in the Crystal Labyrinth.
With the Sword of Wonders, Scorpius has taken over Danus and Crystotopia, and Zephyr and her friends are hiding in Crystotopia in an area called the Forest of Difference. Zephyr doesn't know what's happened to her father and other allies now that Scorpius has the sword, but she is able to break the spell on Kor. And Kor and Zephyr find out that only they together can defeat Scorpius. Zephyr does find that her father and others are hiding in a labyrinth, an ancient one beneath Crystotopia, and they're safe from Scorpius there. Zephyr and her friends go into the labyrinth, and with her father and a new party, they journey through the labyrinth to reach Scorpius beneath the Crystal Castle without him knowing it. But the labyrinth has many dangers in it, and it's treacherous, and Zephyr and Kor have to use love to traverse through it. And ultimately, Zephyr and Kor realize that the strongest and most powerful magic is love itself. And that is how they defeat Scorpius and save Danus.
Here on the line, again, with Myles B. Hibbett, We're discussing a series of books all revolving around the main character, Zephyr. So we started with the first one, Zephyr Spheres and the Sword of Wonders, available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or go directly to his personal website, zephyrspheres.com. There you'll be able to find Zephyr Spheres and the Sword of Wonders, available for pickup and for purchase now, as well as more information on Myles himself. But keep in mind, there's 4 other titles, all still in creation. They'll be published very soon, but as of right now are still in creation. So, guys, this is absolutely incredible. Myles, thank you so much for this. As we tie up this interview, and I know we've already started to kind of broach upon the topic, but as we tie up this interview, if there's one central message, one central theme that really is a through line that connects all 5 of these books in this series, what would you say that message is?
It's the power of love and love itself. That is the true ancient and strongest magic on Danus is love. And also in the full series, it's mentioned and it's there innately, the symbolism of love. That's what Zephyr encounters and with her experiences as she goes as adventures on Danus and Crystotopia, she finds love and she grows with love. And I wanted, especially for young girls, even young black girls and even other black children to be inspired by that and to know that love is a power and that love is something that is a magic in itself.
Such a great message. What is so powerful about it is not only the message of love and that connectivity that way. Of course, that is universal. That's fantastic. Specifically pertaining to that community of black women, and that representation is so profound and is so important. Really being able to see ourselves in these characters and in these storylines, I can't tell you enough how profound and how powerful that is. So Myles, thank you so much for being a guest with us and bringing all of these books to our table. We truly appreciated having you on as a guest on People of Distinction.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.